You have to hit all your strings, same thing like the barajas do, but you're hitting all your strings back and forth. Tremolo. Now, when you strum, I don't want you to go down, up for each different note. I want you to always have a little short movement here. And don't hit your strings on the way up like this. This is the wrong way to do it. It just sounds like a mishmash. Okay? All right. Let me draw out right here what I just said about the whole note and half note. So a whole note and a half note, you tremolo. A quarter note, an eighth note, you strum. Let me spell tremolo correctly. And strum. Okay? Now I just told you what to do with those notes. So let's draw a couple notes, and I drew the chord G. Now I didn't draw anything after it, so that means it's called a major chord. Now I have a chart for all the bugarijas. It says G major. So when you see a G major chord, all you'll see is a capital letter of the scale. So how many chords are there? Well, there are the same number of chords that are in the notes as notes in the scale. So we know what the scale is, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So that's how many chords there are to play. And I forgot to put the D in. There we go. And naturally, each one of these can either be sharp or flat. So you'll have your 7 chords, and they can also either be sharp or flat. And your instrument on a bugarija is the same as the baraj. And I hope you realize that by now. If your open chord was G, like this G bugarija is, as we went up, and I'm grabbing all 3 strings at once, then it would be G sharp or A flat, A, B flat, B, C, D, D sharp, E, F, just like the baraj. You're just going up the scale. And if you had a D bugarija, your open chord would be D. And every barred fret, I'm calling a barred fret grabbing all your strings at once. If this was a D bugarija, that would be E flat or D sharp. That would be E, that would be F, that would be F sharp, that would be G, G sharp, D. We're just going up the scale. So if you want to find some chords that are way down here towards your right hand, you can just follow that scale all the way up your instrument here, and you'll find those chords. All right. So anyway, back to the chords. That's called the G major chord. Now, what other types of chords will you play? Well, there'll be 5 types of chords you'll play. You'll play a major chord, which will look like that. A minor chord, it'll have big G, a little M. And remember, I'm just using G as an example. It could be any letter in the scale. And then you'll play a 7th chord. Now, a 7th chord has 4 notes in it. 3-tone bugarijas, you'll only be playing 3 of the 4 notes. Remember that. 4-tone bugarijas will be able to play all the notes. Okay? Then you'll have a diminished chord, and you'll have a little dim after it, and you'll have an augmented chord. And it'll either have a little plus or the word aug next to it. Okay? So those 5 types of chords. Now you know that that's called a G major, that's a G minor, that's a 7th chord because there's a 7 by it, that's a diminished, and that's an augmented. And there's 5 different chord charts in the book. And what you're going to have to do to play tamburica is you're going to have to look at the chord chart, find your position on your instrument, and you're usually going to be using all your fingers, and learn them. And then learn to change from chord to chord. Now you have a practice lesson in the handout, in the book. I want you to practice changing chords. All right, since I have a G bugarija here, I'll show you one way of changing chords. in the book, the position for F is the third finger, or the third fret on your D string, the first fret on your B string, and the second fret on your G string. That's the F chord. Well, one common change that you'll be using a lot is from F to C7. And C7 is second fret D string, first fret B string, third fret G string. So you should get used to moving from here to here, here to here. And drive your wife or your family nuts by doing this so you can get it. Believe me, it's going to take a lot of practice to get that change down. Now, you just take any positions that you find in your chart and practice changing chords. Now, let's say I'll take the D chord, and remember we're using a G bugarija here, but D bugarija is usually your D chord. So that's a D. Let's go to A. So D bugarijas, look up your D and your A in your book, and you know your D is your open hit. For G bugarijas, this is how you would play D, and here's your A chord. I'm barring. I'm playing all the notes at once. And make sure you get a good clear sound. Don't hit the frets. All the rules that you learned earlier apply to you. And practice changing. Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Everything. The same that we learned for the brachas applies to you. Now, some of my bugarija players don't use their little finger. And boy, talking about making your life hard, that will really do it. If you only use 3 fingers, this is how I grab a minor chord. And D bugarijas, you have similar hand positions for different chords. If you're using your little finger, that's about as far. If you don't use your little finger, you won't be able to stretch any further than this. But look at, my little finger can stretch 3 frets. My second finger cannot. I mean, that is really making your life tough. You have to learn to use all 4 of your fingers, just like the brachas. That little finger's got to be as strong as your third finger. So you can grab chords and change them. And 4 tones, there's no possible way you're going to play with 3 fingers. You have to use all 4 of your fingers. So let's get that built up. Remember that exercise I told the brachas about? Well, that applies to the bugarijas too. You've got to do all those previous lessons. If you skipped, I warned you not to. You're going to have to go back and relearn those lessons. You've got to build strength up in that hand. You're going to use all of your fingers all the time. Well, that's going to be it. In the book, I've got some practice lessons for you. You've got to learn those chord charts, know where all your chord positions are, and learn how to change them. When you play music now, you'll see notes with count values, and you strum your quarters, you strum your eighth notes, and you tremolo your half notes, and you tremolo your whole notes. And you'll usually be playing on the beat, and on the beat means you'll be playing with the bass. But in certain time signatures, for example, 3/4, you might have this kind of setup. You'll have a rest, and then you'll have 2 notes. And we know, and that will be one measure, because everything's got to add up to 3. In bugarijas, you are keeping the count for the rest of the orchestra, along with the bass. We know from the previous lessons that this means count to 3, right? 1, 2, 3. So how would you count this? Rest, 2, 3, rest, 2, 3. So if I had a whole bunch of measures, and this would be, I'm going to use a G major chord here. You'd count it 1, 2, 3, rest, 2, 3, rest, 2, 3, rest, 3, rest, how you count that. And I'll show you one more. If this happened to be in 2/4 time, let's make that a 2. And I have to get rid of the rest right here for you. And let's draw in an 8th rest, a G. We'll make that 8. Okay. Okay, sorry about the way this looks. But now we have an 8th rest, an 8th note, an 8th rest, and an 8th note. Because remember, everything's got to add up to 2. It's in 2/4 time. Well, how would you play that? Well, the bass would hit on that 8th rest, and you would hit on your beat here. So it'd be 1 and 2 and. So you'd be playing 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. And I'm strumming. So that's a common way of playing 2/4 time for the rhythm section, for the bugarijas. And the rhythm section is what the bugarijas and the basses are called combined, because they are keeping the rhythm in the orchestra. So now I showed you that you're going to be reading the count values of notes and that you have to strum. I showed you the different types of chords you'll be playing, and I told you you're going to have to just memorize them. I can't help you by showing you all the chords. It's not going to do you any good. You're not going to remember them. You're going to have to practice by looking at music, looking at your chord chart, and finding them, and then just playing them over and over and over until your hand moves. Well, that's my lesson for the bugarijas. I hope you do a good job on this, and I'll see you guys in the practice lessons. Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to play Lesson 1 in your instruction manual. So I'd like you to sit down in front of the TV, grab your broad stream, cello or bass, and pull out Lesson 1. Now prior to this, we learned all the basics and fundamentals of music. I'd compare it to building a house. We learned the foundation, and we built the foundation strong, and now you're going to build the house. And this is how we're going to start. So I'd like you to remember everything that we've covered up to this point, and your picking and trembling will come into play here very importantly. One thing I want to remind you of is when you do pick your instrument, you might have double G's and double D's. You hit both strings at one time when you're doing this lesson. Now this lesson is in 4/4 time. It's in the key of C, and that means there's no sharps, no flats. And all we're going to be doing today is playing your G, D, A, and E strings. And what I'd like you to do in this lesson is to pick strongly and not look at your hands by the time you're done with this lesson. And I want you to be able to hit each string individually with a strong pick and follow the music as it's written.